Hi, hello, and welcome. Today, let's draw and paint some whales. You can use this tutorial for just the drawing portion of this because there are some good tips and tricks, or you can watch all the way to the end for some watercolor tips on painting whales. Here are a few of the whales that I've painted previously, as well as my little illustration. So, my tip for drawing whales is to give yourself an idea of the general shape. Draw the body first. I recommend using a V shape to get a good idea. The more acute the angle of the V shape is, the more curved your whale will be, and the less acute it is, it's going to be a longer, more stretched out whale. So, what you do is you draw your V shape that's going to be representative of the shape of the whale you want. I like to have a more acute angle because I like them to have that little flipper that goes up. I think it looks cuter. That's just personal preference. And at each tip of that V, the two top tips, that's where the point of your tail will be and where your nose point is going to be. We will end up drawing a little bit outside of these V's, but this is going to help you keep things in proportion. So then you want to go about 2/3 of the way up between the bottom tip of the V and between those two top lines, and draw a little circle and then connect those to the two top lines. You'll see we have kind of a chevron type looking pattern here. You'll want to take where the line starts to angle down, and you're going to want to curve the bottom, and then you want to curve off the top part as well. At this point, you can erase kind of the sharp points, but we can actually use the bottom V area to help us determine where we're going to put our fins. I like to start by drawing the general shape of the body because that helps me know how big to make the nose and the mouth and the tail, because otherwise sometimes I start at the nose and the mouth or the tail and then I have to draw everything else based on the shape of that, and it might not fit my paper as well as I want. You'll see that I first draw my fin a little bit to the left of that V. I do go in and I correct this later. When we're drawing our fins, we want them to, if we've got a true side view, we want those fins to curve back a little bit, and that bottom one on the opposite side of the whale will be back a little bit, and it will end a little sooner because it's smaller. But I do actually end up moving these fins up more to be right in line with the bottom of the V, so it's about 1/3 of the way across the whale. This is the point where we're going to stray from our general outline. So we want to give him a little bump on top of the head, and we want to give him a throat or a chin area that's going to come out from the belly curve and is going to come out a little bit and then curve back up to hit the nose point there. And that's going to be that we're drawing a great white whale. Is that what it's called? I think so. Let me check. But that's going to be that white kind of neck area on the whale. You're going to want to kind of clean up some of the areas that you've drawn because we don't want them to be too dark, so go ahead and take away some of the extra markings. And then we're going to prepare to kind of mark out the eye as well as the white throat area of the blue whale. So we're going to draw the separation from the top of his head to his mouth, and we want his eye to be there. And we basically draw a line that connects his mouth, and then about 1/4 of the way in, we're going to drop that down to avoid the eye. That's where the eye will be. And I just put a little marker, and then we kind of drift that line back towards the center, just to fall just kind of before where the fins are. Next is getting the tail. So we have the point, like the middle center point, and we want to go slightly above it, draw two little M's, and swoop those up to the side, and then give them two swoops down. We're basically drawing an upside down mustache. That's our basic drawing, at least the outline of the whale. If at this point you're going to watercolor it, you want to make any final adjustments, as well as go ahead and erase some of those pencil markings so they're a bit lighter and it won't show through as much. Let's show this one more time a little bit faster. We draw a V, and then about 2/3 of the way up, draw a dot, connect the dots, round the bottom, right when it kind of feels natural to start to curve it, round the top so that you don't have a V point. That is the main body of the whale. Its nose is there, and we want to give it a little nose as well as a bit of more of a chin. Make an M or a little seagull above the tip of the tail. Round that up and then bring it back down with a curve. Erase any of the V that is currently inside of the whale. And we can actually use that point that comes down to be our fin. That's actually a very natural point, is to use the front part of the V to be the front part of the fin, or the fin, not Vin. The white area comes straight down from the nose with a little divot for the eye, and it ends right before the fin. Now it's time to paint. I'm using my tube paints. I've gotten out several different blues. I've got an ultramarine, a phthalo blue. I also got out kind of a violet color, orange, and a yellow ochre, because I want to make a bunch of different blue colors. I want some with green bases, I want some to be darker, more toned down blues, and I want some to be brighter blues. So let's go ahead and mix up several different colors. It's always a good idea to have a test strip of paper so you can test. So for this first one, which is kind of a greenish blue, I mixed some of the phthalo blue plus a little of the yellow ochre. I like to mix up all of my colors kind of at one time, because then I can go back and forth and change these. So the second one, I was going for a bit more of a deep blue with maybe a hint of purple, so I added blue, and then the complementary color is orange to mute that down. So I used some kind of this gold, it's called quintadrone. I can't ever say that right, no matter how many times I try. And then I wanted to get a really muted down color, but I added way too much of that gold and the yellow ochre and overpowered it. So I had to work really hard to get this third color back to more of a purple. And so much so that I had to add quite a bit more of the phthalo blue to get it there, and I got a really nice dark blue that I really liked. So we're going to mix up one more color. And this one I want to be more blue. So I want it to be dark, but I want it to be blue, maybe with a hint of not. So here are my four colors. We've got a dark blue, quite a green blue, almost a black, and then more of a sea blue. If you're using watercolor and you're ready to paint, you need to make sure that you at least slightly erase some of those pencil marks. We did some of that earlier, but I'm going to go through it again. I didn't erase too much because I wanted you to see what I had going on, but at this point it's going to be harder to see my under sketch, and you'll just have to watch what I'm painting. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to really dilute one of the colors in a separate little pan that I pre-mixed up with a bunch of water because I want a very light blue wash that I'm going to put over the entirety of the tail, the fins, the body, everywhere except for that white chin area that we drew kind of the exception. I also will avoid putting any sort of water on that back fin. I'm going to paint that completely separately because I want to keep a separation. If I paint both of them right now, they will bleed into each other and I won't be able to control as much the darkness or lightness between those two fins. So cover everything except for the white chin area and the back fin with a light blue wash. Once you have that whole area evenly coated in your light blue wash, then you can dip in to some of your darker colors. And there doesn't have to be a lot of rhyme or reason to this. I like to touch along the edges. I like to do this when the wash is still really wet, so it's going to fade in. And I like to do this kind of with some different colors, add some darkers, areas, splotch some areas. I really do want there to be kind of a difference between the bottom and the top, so I might concentrate more of those colors at the bottom. If I'm unhappy with the saturation, I do go back and dry my brush and retap those areas, and I will just kind of I will keep this wet and I will keep dipping into different colors, maybe give some spots, emphasize different areas. And I think just the more variation and more colors you add to this while it's wet, it will dry really naturally, look really neat, and it will help to kind of make more of a natural looking coloration to the blue whale. Once you're finished with the coloring of your whale, this is where I like mine. I like the bottom to be darker. We really want to wait, and I encourage you not to push this with a hairdryer because more than likely you have spots that are super wet. Try to let this dry naturally, and I know that sometimes patience is the hardest part of this, but it's worth it. Okay, once we've let the body of the whale and the front fin dry, we're going to go ahead and fill in that back flipper. You can either leave this, you want some contrast between the front and the back one, so you could leave it more transparent, as if the water is really kind of cloudy, or you can make it darker, and that will appear like it's further in the back. So I do that by mixing up kind of a darker wash because I want mine to be darker. And then I'm going to heavily saturate this with some of those darker colors. And then I'll let this dry naturally. Once your back fin is dry, your general coloring and painting of your whale is done. Unless, of course, you want to change it to be something different, then add more layers. But at this point, I was happy with mine. So the final step I like to do is take a fine liner and line all of these areas just very carefully around the whale. And then I will also accentuate the white part of the chin with some lines that kind of wisp up to signify those ridges that are on the blue whale's chin. I did run out of camera battery, and so you don't get to see me draw the eye. And that's okay because it was so small, so I did draw it separately, and that's where you're going to want to, in the placeholder where you put the little dot for the eye, that's where we're going to draw a slightly more intricate eye. To draw the eye, you don't want to overthink this. It doesn't need to be overly perfect, but what I do is I start with 2 kind of parentheses and make a bit of a circle. If you leave a little white dot, it will kind of signify a glimmer in the eye, and that always helps to add some depth. And then we want to cap the bottom and the top, as well as facing towards the front, we want to give it a little caret that points to the nose. Cap the top and bottom, and we want to add some just wrinkles around the bottom, to the side, maybe again on the top, and it kind of looks like a weird football, but that will be in essence what your eye looks like. Once it's outlined, it'll look kind of like this. And make sure that when you do the lines on the chin that you concentrate more of them towards the bottom and make them wispier towards the top. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel. If you're local to Northern Colorado and would like to take a class, visit rebelunicorncrafts.com to see my class listings. If you'd just like to see what I'm up to, visit my Instagram at rebelunicorncrafts, or if you'd like to see my art, you can visit my other Instagram at LaceyWalkerArt. Thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a magically creative day.